I'm Stina from Studio Stina Pottery, and today I'm going to show you how I make a blate. I start out by just cutting a chunk from my block of clay and throwing it into a slab. I know that I want my plate to be this big. This is a 29 centimeter circle lid. So this slab is good enough for now, and then next I'm going to roll it out. So I have these 5mm sticks that I roll my slab to thickness. And cut it out. I use an X-Acto knife. It's old and dull, but it's very thin. So I like that it doesn't have too much resistance in the clay. And that's what I prefer to do all my cutting with. And I think I learned that idea from Natural Elements Pottery, Christy Knox. She has a lot of great tips. And this is good for reclaim later. This is the bottom, so I cornstarch and stamp it with my logo. And I also use this library stamper to put a number and the year on all of my pots. Then I have a piece of foam and flip it onto the foam. And I love this item. This is a slab mat from Pressed Leaf Pottery, and it works better than canvas. But if you like the canvas texture, one side of it does have the canvas texture on it, and then one side is smooth, and it just works great for hand building. Then I press the base of the blate with this bisque chunk that I made. It has 4 little feet on it so that when I flip it upside down, it stays off of the surface. So I press it in the middle, flip it on to my hand like this, and then I can put it on my banding wheel. So now it's off the surface of my banding wheel and not getting in the way. Then I have these bisque molds that my friend Jeanette made me. She works with a wheel, so she was able to make these perfectly circle for me. And they're the dimensions that I wanted. And then I just place it on top and kind of squish the clay in. And then again, because there's the little feet on my bisque mold, I can reach under here and press on the bisque and flip it over. And then there are little handles to take it out. Then I have to kind of press the clay into the edge of the mold like this, because it's quite a sharp curve. And then I smooth all of this out on the outside. Next, I use a red rib, the smaller side, with a little bit of water, just a little bit damp, to press the clay into the edge curve of the bisque mold. And I'm really pressing it in there. I want to give the clay the memory of being this shape so that it dries in round. Then I use my X-Acto knife again to cut off the excess, and I cut it from the inside so that the clay hopefully falls on the outside, and then is also giving the clay more memory of being forced this way. I'm just giving the rim a bit of a bevel here with the rib so that it's not square. And then just giving it another trim with the knife. And then cleaning up all my marks on the inside with the sponge. I like using this kind of a slump mold because I can leave the clay in here and it'll shrink away from the edges and it won't crack. When you use a hump mold and it's on the outside, you really have to pay attention to when the clay is ready to come off. And I definitely use those in the studio as well for different forms. But for these blates, I really like having it on the inside. It also allows me to put the slip trailing design on the inside of the blate while it's still in here and while it's still at the leather hard stage that I like it to be at. And I don't worry about messing up the shape of the rim. So I usually leave it like this for about 40 minutes and then I will decorate it with slip. Now it's about 40 minutes later and you can see that the clay is starting to pull away from the form a little bit. It is almost leather hard, which is good time for me to do my slip trailing. The rim is pretty messy right now and it's tempting to want to clean it up, but I find that it works better if I wait until it's hard, leather hard, and then I take it out and use a rasp on the outside to clean up the edges and then sponge it smooth. So right now it's just slip trailing. This is another reason I really love these bisque molds, because I don't have to be too gentle with the plate. I can move it around the way that I want to, and it's really easy to get this decoration in here. I'm using reused floral cellophane for my cone. I cut it into a rectangle and roll it into a cone and fill it with slip that I have sieved through a mesh bag so that it's nice and smooth and it doesn't have any lumps. I keep my cone snug with a binder clip and fold it down when it's getting loose. I'm choosing to use white slip on this blade because I had a customer ask for 6 purple blades, and with my purple glaze, the white slip shows best. So the purple glaze breaks over the white slip and then it has a nice contrast. And there we have it. Now that the slip trailing is done, I cover it with a plastic lid, and this helps the slip bond with the clay and helps them dry at the same time. So I'll usually leave it like this overnight and then take the lid off tomorrow. So it's shrunk away from the mold quite a bit now. I had it covered overnight, and I flip it into my hand. And I use a rasp to clean off the sharp edge. You can see that it's flared out a little bit because I pressed it so much into the mold, and that needs to come off. And when it's hard, leather hard like this, the rasp works really well. Now the lip is cleaned off, but now the rim is pretty sharp. So I have a small sponge that I just cut. And I press it pretty hard over the edge to really smooth it and round it. And because the clay is so firm, I can get away with pressing it pretty hard and getting that smooth shape that I want. I want it to be beveled, but not sharp. And my clay doesn't have a ton of grog in it, so when I do this, it doesn't make the edge rough. But if your clay has grog in it, you don't want to sponge it too much at leather hard or bone dry stage, because it can take away the fine particles and leave you with the rough grog on the rim there. So that is the finished plate. And then next I'll show you how I dry it. Then to help them dry flat and also round, I dry them slowly in my covered shelf. And I also put a little sand bag in it. So this just has playground sand in a bag of fabric. And I place it in here. And then I push the sand up against the edges so that it's holding it round. Because these are still perfectly round because they were in the mold. But now that they're going to dry on their own, I've noticed they can warp a little bit if I don't hold the edges where I want them to be. So I have an assortment of different sand items. These are socks. This is just some scrap fabric. And it works pretty well to keep them drying in round. These are some I made last week. And you can see that they're still nice and round. And these ones are bone dry. So they are ready to be bisqued once I have a load that's full. So that's how I make my blates. I hope you enjoy and try it out yourself. See you next time.